Hi, this is Paula Gloria with New Realities TV. On this show, we explore the limits and the potentials of human consciousness. Maybe we can say the unlimitedness. Today we have a really special guest, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who's the founder of a process called Nonviolent communication. And I think as we talk to Marshall Rosenberg, we'll hear that indeed what we thought was limited in human ability to communicate, to share, and to understand is, I feel, with his method, really unlimited. So thank you, Marshall, for joining us.
I'm very glad to.
How did you develop this process of nonviolent communication?
Well, I started it by some questions that had been in me, deep in me, since I've been very young. My family moved to Detroit, Michigan, just in time for the race riots of 1943. 30-some people were killed in our neighborhood in 4 days. We were locked in the house during that time. And this was a powerful learning experience for me as a young boy, that this is a world in which people may want to harm you for no reason other than your skin color. Shortly after I went to school, I found out that not only my skin color could be a stimulus for violence, but my name could be a stimulus for violence. So that's really what got me started in this work, just that consciousness that this is a world where people can want to hurt others for such reasons. And that developed in me a deep interest as a boy. Why is this so? What happens to human beings that makes them so violent in regards to such things? And I was fortunate to see that, of course, not everybody is this way. I saw people who were just the opposite, very compassionate, very loving. So I had in my consciousness as a boy growing up to learn about this. Why do some people respond compassionately to others, and why are others so violent? So those questions got me started. I studied clinical psychology, hoping that this would give me some insights into this. But what I saw in clinical psychology was really a perpetuation of the violence, because it was based on looking at people who behave in ways we don't like as though there's something wrong with them, as though they're mentally ill. And at that time I was starting to see that this was part of the problem, this kind of labeling of people, this kind of dehumanization that comes through our language, in which we think in terms of wrongness. So I then started to study people who were really living in the way that I valued, to try to see what contributed to their being able to stay compassionate even in the face of violence around them.
Can you give examples of some of those people?
Well, in my book I mentioned one of them. I was very fortunate as a young boy to have an uncle who came to our house each evening. My grandmother was totally paralyzed and was on a bed in the dining room, and each evening he would come home from his hard work. He worked 8 hours, and then he would come over to our house and help my mother take care of my grandmother. And the whole time he was taking care of her, he had the most wonderful smile on his face. Well, whereas in the streets I was seeing the smile on the people's faces who were beating me because I was Jewish, and the observers watching it and enjoying it, I saw that kind of smile. And then I came into my house and I saw the smile on the face of my uncle as he was taking care of my grandmother. And of course I saw many such examples of people like my uncle, that no matter what's going on around them, they got more pleasure out of contributing to people's well-being than getting caught up in the violence.
Some people would say you create your reality. So in a certain way, the fact that you were able to draw into your life more better examples than worse examples, it might have shaped your direction, because you're certainly not a wimp. You don't avoid conflict or helping people who are not the benevolent smilers, so to speak. You see the good in others.
I like your concept that we create our reality, but we got to, and I'm sure you're aware that this can often be heard in a way that implies we're blaming the victim for their conditions.
Oh, I agree with you.
So yes, to a large degree, how we look at things and how we behave creates our reality. But of course, we need to be conscious that to a large degree, gangs create our reality. Some gangs call themselves gangs. Some gangs call themselves multinational corporations. Some gangs call themselves governments. And these gangs create a lot of our reality.
But you're not afraid of these gangs. You use nonviolent communication to reach in and make your life more beautiful as a result of that reaching in.
Yes, one of the aspects of our training is not only to train people to be more compassionate to themselves and to be able to connect with others in a compassionate way, but to transform whatever structures are making it difficult to relate in a compassionate way, to transform the structures, the gangs as I'm calling them, to transform them so they support people contributing to one another's well-being rather than people competing with each other or dominating each other.
Well, many experts who've analyzed the whole multinational corporate structure, wind up giving data that's very discouraging. It's not like any one person's trying to hurt things, but like there's a momentum of the machinery that's set up that's not helping people get the most of what they can with the planetary resources.
If you see those structures and what power they have and how many people support them, it certainly can be scary. Even if you're as fortunate as I am to work in many countries with people who are banding together and getting things done in transforming these structures, it's very encouraging, especially in the last few years as more and more people become conscious of how these gangs function and what we can do when we get together to transform them. It's very encouraging.
So you help these groups of people to communicate better, and also, can you give an example of how they can communicate with the corporations using your methods?
Well, first of all, to get the access to the people who maintain the corporations is a very big step. So our training shows people how to use our training to get access to the people we need to communicate with. Almost all of us know someone who can get us in touch with the people we need to communicate with. But we need to communicate with these people. We need to communicate clearly what our life-serving vision is, that we intend no destruction of corporations or structures. We want to transform them so that they serve life rather than, whether wittingly or unwittingly, oppress people. So our training can be shown in how you get this access to people in power positions. Part of our training shows once you have this precious time that they give you, how to make the best use of it, how not to get enemy images in the way so that they think that we are attacking them or accusing them. We want to use that precious time to really find a way to get their needs met and our needs met. Another thing, to get that done often requires a team effort. It's not that easy for one person to go through all of the access getting that's necessary, all of the communication that's necessary. So what we need to do is also use nonviolent communication to organize a support team of people working together. But after we organize them, most of the political teams that we see organized, they spend as much of their energy fighting within as putting energy outward to transform the structures. So we show them how nonviolent communication can be used to get our own group to deal with its conflicts in a way that all of our energy doesn't get burned out within, but we have energy left to now go and transform the structures.
I would imagine that some of these powerful individuals, probably mostly men, who are running the corporations, some percentage of them do become interested from their side in your work and probably ask you to bring this knowledge into their business?
Well, we're working within many businesses, showing them how to look first at their vision. Is it really a life-serving vision or not? Or is it mainly basically making profit for a few stockholders? Right. If so, everybody pays for it in that structure. So we try to then help people see how to transform their vision to be a truly life-serving one. And yes, they're very interested in our training once they see that we don't have them locked into enemy images, right, and that we are not there wanting them to do anything except look for other ways of getting their needs met that meet ours as well.
Right. So you... Right, I was just going to... Right, right. Can you explain a little bit what nonviolent communication is, or because you mentioned even in our words, even in our language, it can be alienating, and we can view others, blaming them, judging them, and not allowing the goodness to come forth.
What nonviolent communication is really a synthesis not only of communication, but of intentionality, consciousness about how we choose to live. So nonviolent communication begins with getting people clear of this consciousness, a life-serving consciousness that we call it. And then we show them language that we think, language and communication, that we see serving life-serving consciousness. And now, the process itself, the language and communication, is remarkably simple. Almost everybody who studies it says two things about it: how simple it is. The next thing they say, how difficult it is. Now what makes it simple is that it basically suggests that we keep our consciousness at all times on two things: what's alive in us, and what would make life more wonderful. See, what's alive in us, what's alive in others, what would make life more wonderful for us, what would make life more wonderful. Now that's simple. However, what makes it complicated, we haven't been taught to think and communicate in terms of what's alive in us. We have been taught to think in terms of moralistic judgments. Who's right, who's wrong, who's normal, who's abnormal. So when you have been educated for about 10,000 years, as we have, to think and communicate in moralistic judgments, which incidentally, all of the basic religions have warned us for centuries, do not use moralistic judgments. The Christian tradition says it very clearly: judge not others, lest ye be judged.
Right.
But we hear that, but we have been trained from the time we've been infants to think in terms of moralistic judgments. Our parents and teachers use moralistic judgments with us. That's a good girl, that's a bad boy, that's a very smart thing you did, that's a stupid thing you did. So having been trained so thoroughly for so long in moralistic judgments, it's very difficult for people to do what our training shows how to do, which is stay conscious moment by moment, what's alive in us and what would make life more wonderful. Now, the what's alive in us basically focuses on human needs. What needs of yours are being met at a given moment? What needs are not being met? What needs of others are being met, not being met? And then the what could make life more wonderful means, what do we want? What requests do we have to contribute to human needs being better met? So that's the simplicity of the process. What's alive in us and what would make life more wonderful.
And so when you're going out and you're using this in the case of a corporation, how you would say the corporation has a need for profits?
We show that profits are not a need. A very important part of our training